In this episode, the gamble is high. The crew are made up of 4 dads, all of whom could do with a good coffee but need to be home in time for the school run. How much can we cram in to a day and still make that school run? Stick around and see. We will launch the rib and head down to the coast and find the finest cove we can for a coffee. It is an utterly treacherous little cove in all ways but its looks. However, the tide, wind and crew are just right, so we'll give it a go. The question is, how good can we make that coffee? In my view, at least half of the quality of your coffee comes not from the quality of the grower's bean or that of the roaster's drum, but rather from the quality of the drinker's view. Today, we're going to try and address that half of the story. At some point in this story, I will unfortunately damage my little boat. Your mission as you join us here is to spot where and when it happens. I have with me today 3 old friends, Tom, John and Noel. I have many reasons to be glad to have these men along today. We have in different times walked a long road together, and so I am determined to find them a proper spot for coffee today and get them back for the school run in time, come hell or high water. Later on, the weather will take a turn, as is the way of the sea. Toward the end, we will go through the fix for the damage. As always, I will also take you inside the manoeuvres that made up this trip. At the end, as it is one of the commonest questions I am asked, I will run through how these drone shots were captured with some pointers around the difficulties of drone launching from a boat and the solutions I have chosen.
The bung is in, so she won't sink.
This launch was just about as easy as it gets in still air, a rising tide. The boat would practically launch herself in this. In the absence of a pier wall here, that sandy bottom is a gift for loading and unloading boats. The danger is, though, that drawing sand into the engine cooling water system can shorten the life of the impeller, so I watch it like a hawk, watching both that the engine is tilted low enough to draw water, that the telltale water is running, and obviously that it's high enough to avoid the bottom or shut down before it drags into the sand. In windy days, this can be a bit of a balancing act.
So GPS and everything on that, Robin?
Well, I'm just using the iPad. So the iPad has a map on it and it just uses the iPad's GPS.
Alright.
So kind of a cheap fix. The last time I brought Tom out was to watch the sunrise in January. Here, all but enveloped in summer's ever warm invitation to the sea. It's hard to even imagine that day.
Yeah, it is. That was hardcore.
Teaching all aboard to drive the boat is invariably welcomed by all who try, and so it's one of the great parts of having a boat like this. But from a safety standpoint, it's also entirely logical to do so. The more aboard who can drive, the more redundancy you have if ever things go wrong.
Oh yeah. Looks like if the sun's out, huh?
Yeah. So you remember, you trim it all the way down when you're trying to get it up on the plane, and then when you're up and you're fast enough, you trim it up a little bit just to get the RPMs to come up on their own, and then you know you've got the minimum drag, you know. One thing I really wanted in my boat's design was a high conning position. You'll hear John talking later about his adventures with lobster pots, and it's worth a listen. They are best avoided, and for doing so, a high helm, although unusual in a boat this small, was something I specifically wanted. Also, with the ever-growing number of sea swimmers, I think this design is ever more important. Furthermore, if, like me, you have a taste for getting yourself into rocky little corners, it's also a great help. Out on these trips, I often find myself to be a bit of a tour guide among friends to life in the Merchant Navy and to life at sea. I don't mind it, although it's a long time ago now. It was 10 years of my life in which, for all its faults, I found great people, places, adventures and intrigue.
A month or two at a time, that kind of thing? It could be that, but as often as not I was doing 8.5 months.
8.5?
Yeah.
I won't go.
Yeah.
What was it, a bulk thing, was it?
Yeah, bulk and all kinds of things, yeah. A little boat in there, yeah.
Oh yeah. Same thing we're doing.
Probably just, you can go quite close there, that's quite steep, you know, you can see it on here, but just as long as you turn left and not right.
Up ahead is Ireland's Eye. Around 700 AD, 3 monks established a church on the island, and they created a manuscript copy of the 4 Gospels called the Garland of Howth, which is now preserved in Trinity College. In the late 9th century, Vikings attacked the island, and then they returned again in the 10th century to destroy the church. Only a small part of the structure now remains, surrounded by ferns and hogweed. Some signs of farming have been found, and ploughing revealed Roman coinage, which is intriguing. In 1803, a second man-made structure was built on the island, which is the Martello Tower on the island northwest corner, similar to that which we saw on Shennig Island.
Yeah, the lines are down pretty steep, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just
Jinking or whatever they call it, isn't it?
Had some mackerel, yeah. That's the seniority you walk there.
I don't know whether they're playing or
Look at that. Some tooth, isn't it?
This spectacular natural feature is the huge freestanding rock called the Stag. Located at the northeastern corner of Ireland's Eye, it plays a host to a large variety of seabirds, and among them are thousands of guillemots, gannets, razorbills, fulmars, and of course, gulls.
They're fairly precarious nests there for middle of a storm, like.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Smell it, yeah.
Down there waiting for.
They're at anchor, yeah, waiting for a berth or waiting for orders, yeah.
Just
Waiting, yeah. Like often the berth will be full. If you're in long passage, you might get there 2 days early, you see, so the berth wouldn't be booked for you, yeah.
Have you got tied up in any lobster pots yet?
Not yet.
Up ahead now is the Bailey Lighthouse. Today in the sunshine, the scene seems so innocent. Noel will take the wheel as we drive on a little closer.
Steps. Off you go. Ready?
Enjoy.
Hold on tight.
The first lighthouse on this site was built in about 1667. The original facility consisted of a small cottage and a square tower which supported a coal-fired beacon. Parts of the original building remain. A new tower and house for the keeper was completed on St. Patrick's Day in 1814. My plan today was to get around the Bailey, where shelter from the easterly breeze would help us find a quiet cove for that coffee.
See the hands here for marking the lobster pots.
Well, that's what that is.
So we had a couple of calls with them. On a low tide, there'd be a heap of slack, but it would be floating on the surface.
Yeah.
It could be floating like 10 meters away from the
Oh,
actual
so
thing.
the rope will be coming
So
out.
if you go close to it, and then you just see, you'd be going flat out, and you just see the rope scooting underneath you, and then it just tie up the prop. But like it bring you to a halt in like 2 or 3 meters. You
Right.
go flying. Oh Jesus!
On the bright side, the calm in the lee of the Bailey was even better than I had hoped. The only waves here were the ones we made, and given my plans, this mattered.
Back to the tree house where I can clear my mind. Bounding the fans, you know you're not the last. The trees are still green, just like the world before. The house still white, birds singing out loud. Will you hear me if I shout? No smoking flares, they're just landing blind. What would I find this time? Oh, this time.
I had timed my arrival for high water, which is good for getting into these places, but equally, getting pinned on a rock as the tide begins to ebb would cause school run mayhem in at least 4 families here. With so many things going my way, I decided the easier cove could wait for another day, and I set my sights on a beautiful but treacherous little place called Jameson Cove.
I'm going to drop an anchor, John, and then back into it.
And you can see the bottom there now, alright?
Oh yeah, it's pretty rocky, isn't it? Can you hold that down?
I must say the water clarity here, right next to Dublin Port and the mouth of the Liffey, as it runs through our biggest city, was a pleasure to behold, and to say the least, very useful.
3 meters there and rocky. There's some dark stuff over there.
It's quite shallow there, Robin, look.
Very shallow there.
Yeah, it seems better here.
Yeah, there's a big foot off rock over here. Yeah, there is. Big foot off rock there, yeah. What we could do, have you been here before? No. What we could do is drop the anchor and then just take the time of it.
Do you want me to throw it down, or you want to do it yourself?
Yeah, you can do that there, John. Yeah, it's in the hatch there. You'll have to take the orange strap off.
Can you let it go, Robin?
Yeah, you can let it go. Pedals out, we might be able to run it back in. So, yeah, you want to take that pedal out there and I'll take this one out. So we'll pedal back, John, if you want to just keep paying it out.
Alright.
As we paddle back in here, the scene is almost perfect, unless you like boat paint. Keep your eye out. Don't forget, I come home with damage today. You can see so much more in the drone footage here than we could at the time. It makes me think about the potential for the drone to mean more to me than just footage. It's practically a navigation aid in this kind of work. In truth, the proper craft for this little rocky beach is a sea kayak. But then, don't forget, we never make the school run. We'll need every knot we can muster on the way home.
Lads, that was judged fairly well. Right.
It's at the end of the road.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm guessing by God, yeah.
In the centre clip here you can see the tidal information for the time we were here. 5 days after spring tide and 3 days before neap tides. During neap tides it would be 0.2 metres less, and during spring tides in this month it would be a full half metre higher, and that's not even the highest astronomical tide of the year. A spring high tide would be much more comfortable in this cove.
Sorry, Noel, do you want the hot water? Please.
Well now, lads, this is better than meeting up in the hut and getting ready for another showdown, isn't it? Fig rolls there if anyone wants them.
Sorry, there if anyone wants them.
Yeah, we'll survive our desert island quite well, I think. Oh, look at your man now. That's a good way to spend your day, looking at him.
Sit on kayak, is it?
Yeah, sit on top.
Even if your boots rubber should be fine, wouldn't it? If you were to...
Yeah, we got the anchor line right, John, didn't we? Are you happy to drop it here? Yeah, it looks right.
Thanks for the invite, Robin. It's very nice.
John, it's an absolute pleasure. I'd say me and Noel will do the paddles again. You guys can go up the front and organise the anchor. And we'll just pull it out all the way till the anchor. Come on.
Fall out of there, no? No.
Thank you. And just go slow with the anchor, John, you know, because we'll...
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to find ourselves hitting stuff or not, you know.
That red switch I just turned on is the master switch. For some reason it did not work and left me for a minute thinking I would face this rocky departure without an echo sounder.
You turned the battery off, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I turned it back on as well.
As with most things these days, I just turned it off and turned it on again and it worked. I've had some issues with the master switch, but I'm not overly worried by it because it's easy to bridge it.
Yeah, we're good.
Wasn't making full contact, was it?
I just don't think I turned the switch quite far enough.
Is that pulling away?
Just give me a second, I'll get this rope tied away. All right. Me and Noel are on...
Watch here. You're right, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty...
I think we should be okay, but yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
The great advantage of outboard over inboard is this ability to protect your prop in environments such as this.
I wouldn't bring a much bigger boat than this in. Let me know before you lift the anchor off, okay?
Yeah.
Or when you think you're nearly there, let me know.
I have the tail's going underneath us there now, so.
Oh, right, okay. All right.
It's just that one out past Noel there. Is the other.
This treble beep you just heard means that the engine stopped while the ECU was still trying to run it. It is probably because I did not squeeze the fuel bulb after tilting the engine, which is not normally necessary, but it would prevent this occasional hiccup. My intention here is to leave the anchor on the seabed until I manoeuvre the stern into deep water. Once satisfied I have the prop in plenty of water, then we'll weigh the anchor.
All right, haul away there, John. It's off the ground, is it, John? Yeah. That's it, Noel. Down to the engine now. This is where we look back and we realise, oh Jesus, look what we left.
The water coming in, Rob, that was a spray. Is it getting much spray today?
The water that's in here,
Yeah.
well, depending on the house she sits, the water can come back in through those. The deck doesn't float higher than the sea necessarily, but when you speed up, then it all rushes out the back.
Back out, yeah.
And those little holes there have a rubber flap on the outside, which stops kind of most water getting back in, but it won't stop it all getting back in. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I won't mess with this car, no, no. Won't compromise the dear are charging.
As we round the Bailey Light northbound, take a look at the horizon. Know that look because sitting here under blue skies in the middle of the summer doesn't tell us a thing about how things will be in 5 minutes' time. That view does.
Leave me no other choice but to run, run, oh run and run.
On land, fog normally settles slowly into the cold calm, lingering in valleys with the cold that caused it. But here at sea or by the coast, sea fog can literally blow in as fast as a breeze.
Yeah, they're camping there. They've had a camp there by the look of it.
Yeah,
Oh, there's steps and all down there, yeah.
Waterfall on the land here on the right.
Oh yeah. How pretty is that? This is where you'd be happy to have the big anchor, you know, with an easterly wind and all of that.
Walking close in quickly.
Make it a
Yeah.
better day.
Yeah, it's got that look, hasn't it?
Yes, on and on. I'm not going anywhere.
It's a clip off, it's busy, isn't it? There's tons of people.
People often look at me a little strange on a fine and sunny day when I say bring a second layer of clothes, but the temperature change as the fog rolled in was marked. If at some point somebody falls in, the chill of wet clothes together with these fickle changes can change outcomes quite quickly. Nearly 25 years ago I earned a Master Mariner certificate and I then knew the collision regulations like the back of my hand. The years ashore have taken their toll on all of this, but I'm nearly sure there's provisions in the regulations around establishing a safe speed in fog which relate both to stopping distance of the vessel involved, which in this case is diddly squat in maritime terms, and also whether the crew are all running against the clock for the school run. Suffice to say, the passage home likely cleared any carbon from the powerhead.
You get a real surf here sometimes.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because it gets shallow, you know. You got him following the back of the wave in, you know.
Sometimes in shallow water, the echosounder signal can bounce multiple times between the hull and the seabed, leaving depth errors possible because the time delay on the received signal, having bounced several times, matches a greater depth. It's worth bearing in mind.
That's completely wrong now, isn't that interesting? Should be down horizontal, is it?
It's kind of up like that.
Oh, it's right now, yeah, it's happy now. That's all right. You'd want to know where you are when you not got 14, you got 2.
For the majority of the trip from Howth back to the home port, we could not see land in the fog.
Did you go in a straight line across when you were in that fog? Slightly turning right.
Yeah, I stayed inshore close enough, like that if we had a problem we could paddle to the beach, you know, because it's beach all the way. So
Then a curve to the right.
I went northwest and then north. Yeah, I have my old compass up here. Yeah, just run it into the beach. I'll bring it up to the pier so nobody else has to get their feet wet. Alright, the rest of you should get up at dry feet, I think. So, whoever's not in a rush can hold the bow line.
One thing I love about the Discovery 3 in this work is that I can raise the suspension for launch and recovery, and this keeps salt off the vehicle and improves the trailer angle. It's just very cool to be able to shove this boat around even on an ebbing tide. The lightness of the aluminium hull here is as useful as its strength was back in that rocky cove. Current here is from the left as I approach the trailer. There is no wind to speak of, so the lineup looks good. Well, that looked pretty slick, but what about the damage mentioned earlier? When did that occur? Maybe I better just play that back again. So, the lineup looks good, but as confidence grows I find myself fractionally faster than all of the previous recoveries, and this will cost me. Watch for the bounce. The guide poles are strong, but the tubes are bouncy. The extra speed delivers more energy into the bounce, and that forces the boat to port, and this puts the keel rubbing strip foul of the forward bunks. The boat is easily straightened, but once again these rollers will have to be moved. I do want to perfect this trailer setup so that I can do this in any conditions and with confidence, but I do have to admit that motoring boats onto trailers is hard on gear. Hard on everything from props and impellers to paint and rubbing strakes. Some people recover boats very gracefully using just the winch alone. However, in my current endeavours to perfect the trailer, some adjustments are up next.
I got one off of that one.
So it put a little scratch on it. It bounced off the guide poles and got in this gap between these two. So what I want to do is move these wheels into about here. And also we're going to make little pieces of aluminium to go in there to keep the stainless away from the aluminium, just to make sure it's not corroding. And I've got lock nuts for here, nylocks. That's about even.
Putting trailers into salt water is hard going on materials. Aluminium will last, but it has to be physically separated from other metals.
So we're just going to take out a bite, something like that, with a file, and then that will fit in under there. Keep the two apart. Just got these on eBay, they were only a few euros. Now, let's see if they go in. Could be a little harder to fit. So I loosen them off completely. Oh, it's in. Now you can see if there's any corrosion happening here, look. Just a little bit of rubbing. There is actually, can you see that? Even though it's stainless and aluminium, there is some corrosion there. Do you know why that corrosion is there? But what it is when you put a different metal or a similar metal, when you put them next to each other, they cause corrosion. So now the bit that'll corrode is this one, not this one. Do you know what though? Those are kind of sharp. Do you think we should round them off? I think we should. So I'll hold the file and you just kind of run it down along the file and you're turning it as you're doing it. So try and get a sweep in it, like so. It starts like that and goes to there, and then it'll go round. Let's have a look. How's it? Pretty much there, isn't it? A bit better now. See how these work, Tom? Look. See the little blue piece of plastic? Do you know what that's there for? Well, it locks it. So it means when it goes onto the thread, it gets stuck on there. So it won't fall off on the road then. Righty-tighty, remember? Last one, let the loosey. Righty-tighty. And put your hand up to the very end, that's it.
I got one off of that. Okay.
Good job, Tommy. Now, do you think they'll work? Look, do you see where the wheels are leading the boat? Will it work?
I think so.
No more gouges.
I think the arrangement of these wheels may still not be final, as they may hook up on the wrong side of the strakes that you see here. As promised before we wrap up this episode, a quick look at how the drone shots were captured. The idea of a handle is not my invention at all, but the idea of using this equipment is, and it's worked out pretty well, hence the share.
Well, I'm happy with my little drone sea launch.
Oh, that's not spot properly for that, like.
No, that's what I invented last night. So that's why I'm tired looking. What that is a wrist GoPro holder and a float for a GoPro from a cheap Chinese box of GoPro accessories.
Okay.
That's what that is. So.
And it'll probably act as a float as well, would it? If you
Well,
really.
I don't think that would, because that's nearly a kilo. I don't think it would hold it. But what I did think is if you crashed it in a meter, you'd be able to find it, you know?
Yes, yeah.
So I figured that was the fair compensation. But I'm delighted with that. That's worked really well. The battery. So she's ready to go. First rule of drone flying, never fly the same SIM card twice. Only break your heart. Yeah. Move it towards the beach there, Nolan. We'll bring it to a stop there because I'm going to fly the drone for a bit. But we'll have to come in there close to the beach because I'll use that as a hold point for the drone, and then I'll get it to follow us. So that's where we go back to.
Go left or right?
On the left. Just keep it slow, yeah. So just put the neutral there, Noel, and we'll just kind of drift in and see. That's it. It'll come to a slow halt, and then I'm going to put the drone up. Tom, can I colonise the bow, can I, for drone ops?
Most people I've followed through their boat launches remove all of the drone's protective programming, return to home functions and sensors, but these things have saved me too many times. I choose instead to launch from a standstill, then fly the drone to a landing spot, update its home position, and then proceed with the shot, knowing if things go wrong it will safely return to that selected home position. Another great tip I found online was to fashion a shoulder strap for the controller to facilitate one-handed operation. This allowed me to use the one-button launch key. With the handle on the drone, it cannot land properly, but I anticipate in the event it returns to its home point, it will damage its props, and these, however, are reasonably replaceable. This cheap unbranded GoPro stuff is pretty much junk, so I'm glad to have found a use for it here. I flew it to the adjacent beach, and with the camera facing down I selected a new home point in case of loss of signal or failure to land in time. I know that access to this beach to recover it would be relatively easy. I then simply selected the tracking function of the drone, and the rest of the flight was automated until my feet were high and dry on Jameson's Cove.
Okay, no, can I drive for a bit?
Right away.
It turns out that this quiet and apparently inaccessible cove has carved steps running down to it. Although it was immaculately clean, Googling online reveals that people come out here and have mini raves down here, right where we had a quiet coffee for ourselves. The city is funny, you know, as in odd. Even its hidden wild places seem to attract those who don't manage to get a high on real life. I would say we four were all high on real life today, high on living. Better still, by the way, not one of us was late for the school run.